even his pajamas. In 3 weeks, more than 500 items that once belonged to the president and his wife, Jacqueline, will be offered to the public at Guernsey's auction house here in New York City. Arlan Ettinger is president of Guernsey's, and he's here with a sneak preview. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Well, the Jackie O auction, so to speak, a little while ago, captured about $34.5 million.
Really?
Do you expect the items here to fetch nearly that much?
It's impossible to tell. It's an auction, and most of the things have no minimum price, so they'll bring what they bring.
Now, there are about 600 items, is that right? Or?
Just about.
And about 200, I understand, came from a man named Robert White, who inherited them from John F. Kennedy's longtime secretary, whose name was Evelyn Lincoln.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
They were lifelong friends. Mr. White was a devoted admirer of the late president, collected all his life, as did Evelyn Lincoln, and they were sort of kindred spirits. And when she passed away, he, along with about 10 other people and the Kennedy Library, inherited her collection.
Now, some family members, some Kennedy family members, are not too excited about the fact that some of these items are going to be auctioned. Is that right?
This is a celebration of the late president's life, and the overwhelming response has been most positive, to the extent that some family members, as well as Bouvier family members, have consigned to it. So,
but others have not been so excited about it because they feel like...
No one's ever contacted us.
Well, there has been some talk that Evelyn Lincoln, that she shouldn't have really owned some of these possessions.
Evelyn Lincoln was the dearest friend to the Kennedys, not only during JFK's life, but for years and years afterwards. There are photographs, letters testifying to that, and everyone knew she had this. In fact, without her devoted collecting, it probably wouldn't exist.
All right, well, let's talk about some of the items, if we could. Tell me about this desk.
This short desk sat by the Oval Office desk on which the president wrote most of his important legislation. Due to his back pain, he needed a desk lower than the Oval Office desk, and he did his work right here.
It's hard to say how much this will go for, but do you know where the bids will start? Or
there's no minimum, but the Peace Corps Treaty, the establishment of the Peace Corps, nuclear test ban treaty were written right here, so it's a valuable thing.
All right, tell me about this rocking chair, if you could.
The president, because of his back pain, preferred rocking chairs. There are about a dozen in the world. This one and one like it came from New York's Carlisle, which was known as the New York White House while he stayed there.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, let's see. What do we have here? This actually is a very interesting notebook of notes, and all of his handwriting is seen here. Tell me, this was from a trip he took, correct?
There were many documents in sale. This one was from a 1945 trip throughout Europe, pointing out his perceptive thoughts about the future of the Cold War, problems he foresaw, even at that time in Vietnam.
And this was in Evelyn Lincoln's possession?
Yes.
Okay.
No, excuse me, that one was not. That was Deirdre Henderson, a research assistant of the late president's.
Oh, okay. Now, this is the watch that I mentioned earlier in the program, the Cartier watch that Mrs. Kennedy gave to the president for their 4th anniversary, is that right?
Yes, considered one of the most valuable watches in the world. He wore it throughout the presidency, and we're privileged to have it here.
And I mentioned earlier, he wore it the day he was assassinated.
We've tried as much as possible to avoid any insensitive material or anything relating to the assassination. The fact that it happened to be on his wrist really is just... it's just the way it was.
Right. All right. This is the humidor?
The president was a great cigar smoker.
This would be a very cool thing to own because it has a silver plaque, excuse me, with his name engraved.
This one was on the Oval Office desk and still contains cigars that he gave out to friends.
Oh, wow.
This humidor, we think, is a beautiful object made by the U.S. Armed Forces when the president went to Berlin and gave his famous I Am a Berliner speech, and the insignias of the Army units that made it are right there.
Wow, now we only have about a minute left. These are some of the pens he used to sign major pieces of legislation. So these will be sold all together in one collection. This is his Hermes briefcase, which apparently he loved, and rather than get a new one, he kept getting this one repaired. Is that right?
I can identify with that.
Me too. And this is Jackie's pillbox hat.
Her famous hat that set a trend for the nation.
Now, apparently after her husband died, she gave away a lot of her possessions, and she let Evelyn Lincoln pick what she wanted, and she picked this pillbox hat, which is interesting. Okay, and tell me about this real quickly.
The president never wore hats, but this was a gift from the president of Ireland to him, so he felt obligated to once in a while wear it.
Okay, and the Harvard sweater?
We have material from not only Harvard, but Princeton, where he also attended, yearbooks, pins that he wore on his sweaters.
And he actually gave this to a cameraman, apparently, who was cold, or Jackie did during an interview.
A family member after the assassination.
All right.
Yes.
Arlan Ettinger, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Good luck with the auction.
Great.
And the John F. Kennedy auction will be held in New York City on March 18th and 19th. We'll be back in a moment with more of Today right after these messages.